live from New York. This is City Journal special guest Mike Solana. I was saying before we got on, Mike, that we're just going to go in order of like loud anger. So it's going to be you, and then it's going to be me, and then it's going to be Ralph. So it's like who's going to be?
Why am I on the bottom of the anger totem pole?
Because you try to you pretend to be reasonable when you're on camera.
This is true.
You act like you're a reasonable person, whereas I do not act like a reasonable person. I've never pretended to be a reasonable person. we learned before we got on, Mike, that John lives in one of the jurisdictions that is projected to vote for Curtis Sliwa. Right. So he's a Sliwa American
in a sea of blue.
American.
Like the only little speck of red in a sea of blue. I'm holding the line.
You know, I grew up in Ocean County.
Wait, what?
I said I grew up in Ocean County, New Jersey. So I'm watching all of these results come in from the Jersey governor's race. And they're like, oh my, and then here's like this Ocean County. It's just like bright red. And I know all about Ocean County.
I'm unhappy with that result. That is not a good result.
What's the result for New Jersey?
Yeah, Cheryl won.
Yes, look at that.
Oh yeah, no, they called it almost immediately.
Wow.
Yeah. And the same thing in Virginia. Jason Miara has lost to Jay Jones, the one who talked about killing people's children. So that's not.
That's wild. They just have no. That's what Jay Jones said was unambiguous. He was like, "I want this woman's kids to die." Yeah. Like that's just like crazy. They will vote for anything.
As long as it's not right. And like, well, so the other interesting thing, somebody was talking about this. Virginians, as a general rule, are more likely to vote for a Republican for Attorney General. Like there's a 5-point effect or something for Virginian AGs specifically because they just perceive it as a law and order role, and that didn't even matter. It's just like,
but that result, I mean, that really could. I mean, essentially, every single Democrat who clutched their pearls at the things that Donald Trump said that were allegedly uncouth was full of it.
Yeah, not great.
I mean, it's like, why even like talk about like Trump's effect in terms of like debasing the quality of the discourse. I mean, this is a guy who literally said, "I want their kids to die so that they can feel the pain,"
and also would kill the speaker of the Virginia legislature
in a sick way, right? And no social consequences. Like this is why people no longer care to pretend to be reasonable anymore. Right? That's why I might get actually. Genuinely,
we're praying for it. Well, we got 4 minutes until the polls close. I think I can't actually see. We have this for those of you who are watching, we have this set up where my phone is perched on top of a thing for holding cameras. I don't know what the technical term is for the tripod. A fancy tripod, yeah. So I don't know how many people are watching us. There could be like 3 people, like
100. What? We're close to 200.
Wow. Close to 200. I was not betting on that. Thank you.
Amazing.
We'll try not to disappoint you. So we got
the night might be disappointing, but we'll try to deliver.
All right, so this is a question. We got 3.5 minutes for the polls closed. So I will ask everybody here: where are you on a scale from optimistic to gave up hope months ago? I will start. I am at gave up hope months ago. That is where I am personally.
Yeah, I gave up.
What's the measure of success? Is it Mamdani getting a majority? Or is it Mamdani losing? That's the thing, right? I mean, I've tempered my expectations. If Mamdani wins with only plurality, I think that means a different kind of
I guess. Mike, are you optimistic?
I knew that he was going to win the primary. I was like, Cuomo's fucking toast. Mamdani's got the juice. He's definitely going to win. He's the only one who's actually campaigning. Cuomo was talking about Trump. I never thought for a second that Cuomo was going to win that primary. Mamdani won. And the second that happened, I was like, it's over. New York's voting for a communist. It's crazy. Like, here he goes. He's not even like a fake communist. He's like fully like a Marx quoting whatever, but not optimistic, not even mad about it. Like I got so used to it so long ago that I'm like, yeah, I feel like he's already running. I think he's like already the mayor.
Well, I think I have you all beat because my lack of optimism caused me to leave the city in 2020. Yeah, I was counting on New York City losing its mind well before anybody else at this table. So there you have it.
Everyone was saying that ranked choice voting was going to be a huge thing. Like it was going to take weeks to get the results of the primary. It's all BS. Yeah. We learned that night.
Immediately.
Cuomo didn't even need to say on primary night that Mamdani won. We knew. the gig was up.
Well, okay, I mean, so what was interesting there, right? Like I was a dupe, I was a fool, I believed the polling, and to me, the one iota of like maybe I could know, maybe something will surprise me tonight is like if the polling was that catastrophically wrong during the primary, then like I can imagine a world in which the polling is catastrophically wrong in the other direction, and like actually in 20 minutes, Curtis Sliwa is going to be elected mayor of New York.
Right.
I could
But
not.
that's just not the direction that the night is going. That's not where any other race is going. I don't think
Yeah.
I read
And that's the interesting macro question, right? Is like, I was saying to somebody earlier, if Citarelli puts up a big fight in New Jersey, if Miyares wins in Virginia, like that means something about the national environment. Now I'm going to go to all of my friends who are like, Democrats don't have any chance in 2028. And I'm like, you're completely wrong.
Yeah.
People will vote for a rock with a D next to it.
But at the same time, I don't know what were people expecting though for for tonight. Like I just don't know what the positive outcome for Republicans was supposed to be. I just don't think there was really a chance for. I don't think I grew up in New Jersey. I did not think that the Republican had a shot. It did not look to me like the Virginia governor had a shot. Even Jay Jones doesn't surprise me. It seemed like that's the direction everything was going in. So I just don't really know. I definitely think. Go ahead.
So what I was going to say is like, to me, the core calculus comes down to, on the one hand, like the incumbent party in the White House pays a penalty in the following elections. And that's just like reliably true. Voters, thermostatic equilibrium, blah, blah, blah. I can do the political science. It doesn't really matter. On the other hand, if you read the polling, I would say that the Democratic Party is marginally more popular than Osama bin Laden, but it's only like it's a matter of margins, right? Like people hate the Democrats. They're not popular. And so the counter argument is like, maybe there has been a durable shift to the Republicans' interest because of that unpopularity.
It does seem like in New Jersey, though, that the governor is overperforming compared to Murphy's last election, which for a Democrat is interesting to me. Like it seemed like Jersey was closer last time around. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just that.
Like my pet theory at Jersey is that there was the last titanic struggle between the Italians and the Irish. Because that's what it was. Phil Murphy and Jack Ciattarelli. Polls are closing. We should talk a little about like what else is getting voted on tonight and like what's going on the ballot for people who are tuning in who are not New York politics obsessive. I don't know if John, you want to jump in and like give us some sense of what is happening tonight.
So there are 6 ballot proposals on New York City voters' ballots. Number 1 is a very technical state constitutional amendment that has to do with forest land way up in Essex County. There was an Olympic sports compound that was built on land that was supposed to be protected forever by the state constitution. I think it's section 19 of the state constitution. Complex was built on this land, so there is a remedial measure to fix the problem. Very minor technocratic issue. Questions 2, 3, and 4 would facilitate a housing supply in New York City in large part by taking away the vote from the city council. So in New York City, there's an informal practice. It's not in law. It's called member deference. And the idea is that, I am as a city council member may have redevelopments or rezonings that I don't like. You may have rezonings that you don't like. So if I disapprove of one, right, you will agree to vote mine down. And if you disapprove of one, I'll agree to vote yours down. And the city council follows this member deference practice, which means that
and parenthetically, the city council is full of crazy people.
Literally
lunatics.
It's a genuine question whether the city council is to the left of Mamdani or not. I mean, like,
I think they
are to the left of Mamdani. They're like Sandy Nurse,
peas in a pod, right?
Yeah.
So the ballot questions 2, 3, and 4 would take certain rezonings and remove it from the city council's vote and therefore bypass the member deference practice because it's just never going to go to the city council. It's going to go instead to bodies like the City Planning Commission or to a new board created of the mayor, the speaker, and the borough president for question number 4. The bottom line is that the 3 housing land use related ballot questions would facilitate more housing supply. It would complement Mayor Eric Adams' greatest legacy, which is the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity Plan, which was a really historic achievement, which showed that you could develop a political constituency in favor of housing supply growth. I think history will be favorable to Adams for this. It's the single biggest land use change in New York City since 1961.
And yet they wouldn't reelect him. They wouldn't do it.
The irony here is that now it's past 9 o'clock.
Yeah, well,
Speak
that's
our minds.
Yeah.
Eric Adams would have been better than any of these guys.
Right.
100%.
I can say now with great comfort that I took an informal poll of many of my colleagues, like after the primary, is like, who are you voting for? And the answer is Eric Adams, right? Crime is down. Housing is going to be increased. The volume of housing is going to be increased. Yes, he may have taken some bribes. It's hard to say what's going on.
What cares though? I don't care. It's not as bad as communism. It's not as bad as communism. What was the bribe? It was a first-class seat or something, a business-class seat. But he's the executive of the most powerful city in the world. He should be flying, but he shouldn't have to fly business with a bribe. We should just be paying for him to do it. I don't understand. There shouldn't be a controversy.
It's called VIP treatment, right? If you're the most important guy in New York City, yeah, you get some extra.
Let him fly business class. He deserves it.
Yeah.
I would do anything right now.
And the other thing was like the expedited permits for the Turkish consulate. Like that's okay, bad because it relates to public safety, but it's an indictment of the way our government works that you need to like get in contact with a borough president who then becomes a mayor to get the thing approved.
Right.
Let's make the government better.
Like, I actually think the solution to this is that it should be easier for the Turkish to build stuff in the city of New York.
Yeah.
That seems pretty straightforward to me. But also, like, look, many mayors are corrupt. That's like not unusual practice in the city of New York. On the scale of corruption, not that big of a deal. I feel like we should also note for listeners who are not, we have New York 1 going on in the background. We have, 36% of the vote is in. Mamdani is at 51.5%. Mo is at 39.7%, and Sliwa is at 8%.
Well,
there we go.
Thank God he's in.
a lot of that is going to be early vote.
Yeah.
Right. So Michael Lang had Sliwa at about 11%.
And Michael Lang, we should say, is an elections analyst, focuses on New York, and was extraordinarily accurate in the primary. So we'll wait and see if he can do it again in the general.
Yeah.
He's on Substack. By the way, I should plug, because otherwise our producers will get mad at us. I should plug City Journal Substack.
Yes.
At cityjournal.substack.com. Also Pirate Wires, which is just piratewires.com. Great website, both great websites. Pirate Wires, a little bigger. We'll catch up to that.
Great endorsement guy.
They did have a great endorsement guide. They do great stuff.
Yes, that was a great collab. Did you see that the DA retweeted it? She was like, so proud to accept the endorsement from Pirate Wires. We get a lot of that now. The voting guide is like, the one that we do in SF is like really popular. And the different, we actually had, this is crazy. After the voting guide came out in the election, this last election took place, I found journalists were sniffing around because people had gone to them and told them that we had like this shady endorsement process in which we wouldn't talk to other candidates that we didn't endorse or something. They were like, the other candidates were mad that we didn't talk to them. I was like, I didn't know that you even knew we existed. I am like nothing but happy to talk to you. Like, this is awesome.
But yeah, so here's an interesting question is like, you have, and we've talked about this, and you talked about this last time too, you have seen, I'm not willing to say that San Francisco is good now, but like San Francisco is better. Like successful.
San Francisco is the way, man. I've been saying this. I keep beating this drum. It is like the most exciting city for politics, I think, in the country. It has like it's a total, complete violation of the narrative that is, I think, the most well understood. It's a smaller game, though. You have 11 supervisors to New York City's 51 city councilors, and you have. But then what you have is, I think, sort of similar. You have a small group of people who were like, wait, this is crazy. What do we do? And they just kind of started the process earlier. There was a lot of money and a lot of commitment, and they started running better candidates. And now there's like a slight turnaround, and the mayor's great, and or as great as you could expect from a Democrat. And like, yeah, things are looking up.
I've had this theory of like San Francisco's turnaround, that part of what caused the injection of sanity into the city's politics was the fact that it was harder for the elite and the politically active to avoid the downside of bad policy, right? Like it didn't matter if you lived in a really nice neighborhood, like you were still dealing with people shitting in the street, and you were still dealing with, homeless people chasing you down the block, demanding that you go to an ATM to get your money. You were still, seeing needles.
You have to walk through
before.
the tenderloin.
So it was like, in a way, everyone shared in the burden of the after effects of the bad policy decisions in San Francisco in a way that's not necessarily true here in New York. And that gives me pause because it makes me think that we're actually not going to see that
I don't know.
turn around.
I don't think so. I think because LA had, I wasn't living in New York at the time. It sounded pretty bad of what was going on in COVID that summer of 2020 to me. Like certainly the rioting there was less rioting in San Francisco than other major cities. There was some massive looting down in Union Square, but like less than New York, less than LA, like just less all around. I think that the big difference was there was this huge microscope on this huge microscope on San Francisco. Everybody on Twitter lived there and was talking about it. And so it was hard for these local politicians to escape the scrutiny, and they were taken back by it. They were surprised by it. You could tell in the very early stages of that they weren't used to it. They didn't expect people to care about what they were doing. And suddenly everybody really cared. And not only San Franciscans, but like people across the country were like, this fucking DA in San Francisco, we got to get rid of him. And it's like nobody on their side knew what to do with that. I think that New York City needs that. You need like just a huge camera on every single one of these city council members. They should all be stars. Like, why don't we know their names? They're the legislators of the city and they're doing insane, terrible things. Everybody should know who they are, and they should be talking about them every single day, and they should have to defend themselves.
I think, and I'm curious your take on this, Mike, but I think a sort of core dynamic in what happened in this race is, I'm going to go out on a limb here and assert something controversial. Andrew Cuomo sucks. He's a terrible candidate. And I think this for several reasons. One is all the sexual harassment allegations. And then another one is all the dead grannies. And then another one is just like, he's not very, he's not very persuasive or personable.
And he cried.
Yeah. Also, he signed all the pro-crime bills.
And he burned a lot of bridges.
He burned a lot of bridges.
A lot of people he turned off.
No, dude, it made no sense to run him. It's crazy that he ran, and then after he lost, it's really crazy that everyone doubled down.
Okay, but so what's interesting to me is just like, Andrew Cuomo was able to successfully clear the field, and there was neither a coordinated effort in the primary to pick up somebody other than him. Like it wasn't going to be Whitney Tilson, but like Whitney Tilson, who is a hedge funder, very good guy, moderate Democrat, would have been a great mayor in my opinion.
Absolutely.
There was nobody in the Whitney Tilson lane who the city's elites did not coordinate around somebody like Whitney Tilson, an alternative who was going to own the moderate lane that wasn't Cuomo. That didn't happen in the primary, and then it didn't happen after the primary was over. Clearly, there was a comprehensive failure to do that kind of, I know that people were talking about, can we get Jessica Tisch, the NYPD commissioner, to step up? Is that possible? And it didn't work. So, like, what is the failure of elite coordination, and how do you get around that? Because it seems like you guys succeeded at elite coordination. Gary Tan succeeded at elite coordination in San Francisco. God bless Gary Tan. Like what do New York City's movers and shakers need to learn? What did they get wrong?
Man, that's such a good question. I have no idea. It's it's just like all of the money and all of the smart people are on the center, sort of centrist side in San Francisco. Once we started talking about who was in charge and who was in power, it was very obvious that we needed something different. And the things that we needed were really ground floor things. It was like, crime should be illegal again, and people should stop shitting in the streets, and the schools should be open, and we shouldn't be trying to rename them rather than reopen them, like just basic shit like that. And in New York, I just don't, honestly, like I feel like it's not going to work out for you guys. I think that the demographics are totally different. I think that you have a smaller concentration of smart people, and you have a lot of smart people who are.
You can see that in the polling data.
And I think it's like I mean, you even see the way that finance is leaving the city. I saw pulling or some numbers on that was down to like 7% or something. It's just it's such a different city. But I think it starts with just being ferocious. If you have some high status people who are like, no, socialism's really bad, and these radical leftists are fucking crazy, and it's fine to make fun of them. In fact, it's good. In fact, it's high status to make fun of them. You don't want to be seen on their side. If you can do that, then I think that's helpful. In San Francisco, that was a little bit easier because, it's like it's a one industry town. And so if you had all the elites in that industry who were on the same side, it was like, oh, we're allowed to believe this now. But in New York City, who are you trying to get? Is your guy really just Bill Ackman? I don't even think he's that. Do people care what he thinks? I don't care what he thinks, but I'm not in New York, so I don't know.
And even here, within an industry like the real estate industry, it's fragmented. Your rent stabilized property owner does not have the same interest per se as your developer does.
Yep.
Right? So they want different things. One wants to be able to make more housing more predictably is the most important thing. What people don't talk about is that it takes like 2 to 3 years to get through environmental review for rezoning in New York City. And the developer has to bear all of the uncertainty and all the costs of that. And then they have to go through the land use process, the ULURP process that ends in the city council vote that I said has this council member veto at the end of it. So there's just so much uncertainty. But if you're a rent stabilized owner, you just want the ability to change the law and increase the rents a little bit, right? Whereas in San Francisco, there is more of a concentration of the tech industry and an alignment of interests. And here we just don't quite have that.
So there are very basic have here that I'm really curious to get your take on, Mike, is a lot of overachieving, and overachieving, I mean over-credentialed, really, like underachieving.
Downwardly mobile.
Yeah, downwardly mobile millennials who don't have roots in New York. They're, first-generation New Yorkers who are coming out in droves for Zohran Mamdani.
And Raihan Salam, the president, had some great pieces in the journal.
Yeah, no, it's great analysis. What's your sort of take on that? I mean, like, he seems to have essentially hijacked the political machine of New York by recognizing that our demographics are just very different. And there's not a sort of pool of old school New Yorkers with roots who have long-term ambitions about what the city should be. Rather, it's people who are probably going to be here for 5-6 years and then go back to their Midwest towns from whence they came to start their families. Who cares what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think local politics is always a question of just who wants it more because of this dynamic. It's like not a lot of people are super engaged because at least these really transient cities. You have a lot of that in San Francisco too. It's a super transient city. And the radicals, generally speaking, just want it more. And then you have these one-party towns, right? It's like New York City and San Francisco, Los Angeles. It's just there's one political party in charge. And when that happens, then these people go after the races that even fewer people care about, which are the races that lead to something like your mayor endorsement, right? So it's like in San Francisco, the DCCC was a really important thing for a minute. It was like who was getting the official Democratic nomination, and the radicals ran that shit. So for a second, it was even, I think I'm actually have to check in. I'm not actually sure where they are now, but they're just at a disadvantage. Like normal people don't care about local politics. They're trying to like live their life. Whereas the socialists or I don't even know what you would call them, these radical leftists are like in a constant state of agitation. I think it's the same here. It's the same there. And we have to just
they're meeting twice a week at the DSA.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that and that I think is an undertold part of the story. And we've done some stuff on this City Journal. We were talking to Cole about the Working Families Party, which people I think don't understand the influence of. The Working Families Party is a like Northeast. They're in Connecticut. They're in New York, they're in, I think, New Jersey, a couple of other states, but it's a local party that exists to run progressive candidates against Democrats that are perceived as too moderate. And the Working Families Party has a major infrastructure in the state of New York. The DSA, major infrastructure. Zohran Mamdani's campaign started as a DSA membership drive. That was the goal of the campaign. You said this in Politico. They were shocked they got anywhere because their purpose was to build power for the DSA. But I think part of what you see in these low turnout off cycle, to your point, Mike, in these low turnout off cycle elections where there isn't a lot of interest. People don't know what the stakes are. People don't know what's going on. If you have any kind of infrastructure, it seems like you can have a great deal of impact, right? Like
Yeah.
the reason Mamdani won the primary is just that the DSA did such effective turnout that all the models were wrong because their assumptions with the composition of the elect. That's how far off they are. They organize.
They just care about it. And then, no one else does. And if you had some kind of, you need a machine before you can say, like, why did our machine not win? And you're just like, you're at zero right now. So you have to build that. You have to get funding for it. Shouldn't be hard. Again, with people like Ackman running their mouth off, it's like, great. Well, now here's the thing you have to fund. Give us lots and lots and lots of money to fund it. And then I think you have to like guilt these people. All these like super, super wealthy people, you need to be like, you have to give us money. It's just like there is no alternative here. We're doing this thing. Here's the machine. We're going to, gather the candidates, and you have to give us money or you're a bad person, and we will publicly shame you the way the left does.
I should say our producer just handed us her phone. Decision Desk HQ called it for Zohran 9:03. Game's over. Zohran Mamdani, next man, New York City. Crime is now legal. Ryan in the streets.
Rikers Island immediately open. It's open. It's Gotham.
This is where we're living now. This is New York.
I'll start now. Here you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will be giving this to the DSA, of which I am now by law a member. Congratulations, everybody. We made it.
We'll live in our red stabilized unit until we die. That's what bothers me the most. New York City is a place where dreams should come true, where strivers should make the most of their lives. And now we're like okay with the 1936 apartment that like you have, and that's getting worse every single year and is never going to get better because the economics are impossible. Like that's good enough for the rest of your life because you never leave a rent stabilized unit. Why would you? It's just like we're changing the ethos of our city for
one reason. If she gets sick of what this city eventually does to you, it becomes the kind of place where you want to live and raise a family, which you can't do well here.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm born and raised in Brooklyn. I have lived most of the years that I've been in this earth within the 5 boroughs of New York. I lived in the Bronx. I've lived in Manhattan. I've lived in Brooklyn. I have lived in Queens. I thought that I would die in New York City as a father, as a husband, as a professional. And it got to the point where you're nickel and dimed nonstop. You're getting speeding tickets from some camera for going 36 miles an hour on a 6-lane highway at 10 o'clock at night when no one's on the street. You've got the city building miles and miles of bike lanes in what used to be parking spaces for residents that no one uses, and now it takes you 45 minutes to find a parking spot.
At least the guy's going 45 miles an hour on his e-bike and runs.
Right.
Yeah.
Bike lane.
Or you can spend $700 a month on a garage, right? You've got like, homeless people walking into parks and starting to bathe in the sprinklers that should be for the kids, something I've seen happen in Queens when I was out with my kids in Forest Hills. And, and then you start thinking about the schools. If you're lucky enough to live in a neighborhood where you're zoned for a good school, you inevitably have to deal with the fact that your kid is going to be indoctrinated. And if you care at all about him not being a woke nut job by the time he's or she's 13, and even that dichotomy, right, will get you in trouble in a New York City public school.
Right?
Yeah.
You won't even know because they won't even tell you.
It's like you can't escape it. And if you want just a normal family life, the message is crystal clear. New York City ain't for you.
Yeah. And I think Connor Bryan, who's at the Economic Innovation Group, and a friend of CJ, friend of MI, had a great report looking at the steadily declining share of families with children under 5 in the city of New York. And it's just been plummeting since COVID. And it makes a lot of sense. And this, by the way, I think this is an important thing that we who are critical of Mamdani need to take away from tonight, which is like, he is right about the problem. Affordability is the problem. He is completely correct. He is totally wrong about the solution. His solutions are really dumb and they will make the problem worse. He is right about the problem.
Well, yeah, but there are also people who have and would have continued to be willing to pay the premium if they could take for granted all the other stuff that matters about quality of life, about safety, about being able to ride the subways without, worrying about the crazy guy who's having a conversation with somebody who's not there, without having to deal with the needles on the floor in the playground in Washington Square Park, which is surrounded by houses that cost $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million. Like, people will pay for the premium of living in New York. They will pay to be close to restaurants. They will pay to have good sushi at 11 o'clock at night. They will pay to have access to cool clubs, like the one that we were just at for a party. We won't tell you where because you weren't there. But like, once you can't take any of those quality of life things for granted, peace of mind becomes significantly more valuable.
Yeah. Are you paying more for more or more for less?
Right.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
And New Yorkers lately have been paying more for less up until really this year. I mean, if
Also, though, I want to say people always think that just New York will persist forever because it's New York. It's this huge magnet for talent and people want to be there. I do wonder how much of that has to do with this giant money machine that was the finance industry. And if that keeps shrinking and there's less money in the city just to give people jobs, like, do people stop going? And once the tax shifts a bit, you can't fund services. There's a kind of like doom loop that sets off in the city. I don't know that it's this like invincible city actually. Because it's not that fun to live. Sorry, last thought, just like, because like, you all have a bit of Stockholm syndrome. It's actually like not that nice. You're in a metal tube most of the day. It's like you're breathing in poison. There's crime and trash and shit everywhere. Rats are like, people are always joking about the rats with like the giant slice of pizza or something on the stairs. Like, that's super dystopian, actually, if you just step back and look at it. So you're putting up with a lot to be there. And I don't know, does that bubble burst?
we are steps away right now from the brand new monolithic, enormous JP Morgan headquarters. It just opened the other week. It holds 30,000 workers inside. And JP Morgan has more employees in Texas than New York City.
Mhm.
New York State, actually. So that says a lot.
Yeah, when I was in Miami, there was this tech thing that people would ask about a few years ago. I was here just for different reasons, and I never thought the tech thing was going to happen. However, when asked, I would be like, "Wait, but this is like the fifth borough of New York, or the sixth borough of New York City. It's like people come down here during the winter, and it is a real thing. It's like New Yorkers are here. It's not that hard, and it's right there, and it's way more friendly in terms of tax. And I don't think that's super unlikely. And in fact, we don't have to speculate. We're looking at the numbers declining. So like the number of finance jobs in New York is declining. So that is meaningful.
I think that there are two arguments against that. There's an argument against that and there's an argument for it, which is like basically part of how, and I'm stealing this line consciously from Rafael Mangual, President MI, because I was talking about this earlier. The way that the city has dealt with the departure of capital from the city is a combination. And I should note that we're watching Mark Levine and Jemai Williams and a bunch of people are getting called by New York One. Alvin Bragg won despite the endorsement of Pirate Wires. We're sorry. It's not great for your win-loss record, but that's okay. But the city has dealt with this problem in two ways. One is through subsidy and the other one is through regulation. And what they've done is, on the one hand, they have taken huge volumes of federal funding. You look at home
Drying up very soon.
well, yeah, but you look at home health aides. Home health services are the fastest growing employment in the city of New York. By some measures, there's no employment growth in New York except for home health services. And all of that is federal Medicaid money. It's how the state manages reimbursement for working as a home health aide in the city. Kathy Hochul has called this like an enormous racket. Those are her words, a racket. But that is like where employment growth is coming from in the city of New York, is from federal Medicaid dollars. That's one thing. The other half of it is, if you have an affordability problem, you can seemingly regulate it away, right? Like, freezing the rent is not the first time that they've tried this. Back in 2019, when Andrew Cuomo was governor, they passed this tenant protection law, which made it much harder to evict people. And we know exactly the effects of that. We know that it increases costs.
You said, I'm sorry, I want to just talk about Andrew Cuomo for a second. Now that it's all just completely over, this is his fault.
Yeah.
And I think that people really need to just, like, I really hope that that's the takeaway. This is not Sliwa's fault. This is not Mamdani's. Mamdani, he won. He ran a great campaign. He addressed issues. He one, he deserved it in the primary. He deserved it in the general. Like, I really can't stand. I hate him. I will use the word hate. I think this is like an evil human being, but he fucking deserved it. And Andrew Cuomo deserved to lose. He was so bad. He was the worst. He was a bad candidate then. He was a bad candidate in the general. He made every bad decision he possibly could. The way he handled the Sliwa thing was also like there had to have been a win there. He had to have been able to sit him down and figure something out. That was really not getting Sliwa to leave the race. If that was what he needed to win, then he should have made that happen. And the fact that he couldn't was the third huge thing that he did that was fucked up and wrong. And I really hope that not only him, but the sort of Bill Ackmans of the world who really jumped all in behind him and insisted this was like, God's gift. Everyone needs to just get on board with the fact that Cuomo is his own. He is the reason he lost, nobody else.
Yeah. I mean, like the other thing about Cuomo is Cuomo was exactly the wrong candidate for this moment. Mamdani had a massive weakness on public safety. Cuomo had the worst part of his record on that issue, and he wouldn't disown it. And he wouldn't disown this. If Cuomo had come in with a genuine mea culpa and said, "Listen, I screwed up. I was fired by people to my left, and I gave in when I shouldn't have." And bail reform and discovery reform and juvenile justice reform and all this other stuff on the police reform front. Like, I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have closed 17 state prisons. I shouldn't have closed, another handful of juvenile detention facilities. And if you trust me with this, I will backtrack on all of this and I will make it right. He never did that.
In hindsight, he thought he was going to win.
He didn't even say that. Yeah.
He didn't think he had to do anything because he truly believed that he was just going to win. Everyone back in the primary, all of these sort of like machine Democrats just believed that. And it was this incredible arrogance and he got smacked down and then he couldn't recover in the general. It was like, I don't even know.
Our producer is telling us that there are questions in the chat, and I'm going to pull this. I want to bring this in because I think there's a great answer. Question from live stream chat: how likely will a lawfare strategy work for the worst parts of the Mamdani regime? We actually have a lot of thoughts on this topic. You want to talk about?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Lawfare strategy? What is that?
Using litigation to stop Mamdani on certain things.
Yeah, I want to know from you guys what you think he's capable of. So answer this one, and then I would love to just kind of get a lay of the land.
And we can tell you secret communication with Mike. John and I were working on this for Pirate Wire, so we'll have
don't say too much. Don't give too much away.
Yeah,
but I do want to know.
Yeah, so okay, let's start with freezing the rent. Right, it's his signature proposal. De Blasio got it done 3 times, but the mayor does not have the ability to control stabilized rent increases. The mayor does not have the unilateral ability to freeze rents. That power is vested in a board called the Rent Guidelines Board, made up of 9 members. The mayor appoints all 9, but they are appointed for a term of years, and the mayor cannot fire them except for cause. He can fire the chairman, but not the other members. Now, 2 of the other members, it's like an independent body. Yeah. It's at least contemplated to have a degree of independence from the mayor, right? And that is very important.
And there's an independent legal mandate, right? It has a specific statutory responsibility in what it has to weigh in determining what the rent increase is going to be every year. The members of the board can't just be like, we think it should be 6. There are factors that they are required by law to consider,
like operating costs for owners, like property tax increases, and like water sewer rates, right? So the statute is clear. You have to consider these factors. And there are 2 representatives for owners, 2 representatives for tenants, and 4 representatives for the public interest. So there's a statutory scheme in place that contemplates a weighing of interests and a deliberate decision. Now, what Mamdani is basically saying is, we don't care what the statute says. The only thing that really matters is getting to a 0% rent increase. So I'm going to put my minions on the board that will only agree to a 0% rent increase, and we're going to basically jettison this carefully constructed statutory scheme. Doesn't matter what they're required to weigh. We're only going to go with the 0%. So if your operating costs are up 5%, doesn't matter. We're only going to agree to a 0%.
And the problem with this is actually, I mean, it is bad policy, but more importantly, it is flagrantly illegal, right? Like, Zohran Mamdani has spent the past year promising to violate the law if he's elected. And there's a component of New York state law that allows individual civilians who are affected to bring civil suits to enjoin legal action on the part of the mayoral state. This is Article 78 of
civil procedure.
yeah.
I mean-
which I expect an Article 78 suit like today. Like maybe they have to wait until he's sworn in. But if I am rent stabilized landlords in the city of New York, I am preparing an Article 78 suit literally as we speak. If the paperwork has not already been drafted,
Created a hell of a record.
Right.
I mean, it's like lawyers say, don't put it in writing. Well, he made a whole campaign about it.
So this is my other favorite one. Is Mamdani has multiple times gone on television and said he wants to raise taxes. How is he going to pay for all his plans? He has to raise taxes, go to Albany and raise taxes. His plan is to raise taxes. He has said multiple times he wants to make sure that whiter parts of the city of New York pay their fair share. He wants to raise taxes on whiter New Yorkers.
Sounds like equal protection.
Right. My response is that Harmeet Dillon, who is the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, who lives and breathes to go after this stuff, Harmeet Dillon's going to field day with that one. I expect her to be in his office tomorrow morning. Like, that's flagrantly illegal. You cannot do that.
But that assumes he's going to get some property reform, tax reform done. So on the one hand, he justifies 0% rent increases because owners of rent-stabilized buildings have had their net operating income increase by 12%. And on the other hand, in the next breath, he says, but we could do property tax reform. Well, you would only do property tax reform to help landlords who are really struggling. But I thought they were making too much money because it's like 12%. So what is it? Are they making too much money or are they not making enough?
Right.
But basically,
you're asking too much.
Well, I know. And he had the chance to respond to this legal question, totally dodged it every single time. And it's a real challenge. It will come up if and when he gets his RGB, Rent Guidelines Board, to vote for a 0% rent decreases. And then it's in the court. The other thing is that Mayor Eric Adams might reappoint the RGB members who have expired
members,
which will delay it, a year?
No, a couple of years at least, because I basically think like 5 members are expired terms right now. So,
but how long are the terms?
2 years, 3 years, yeah. So basically, many of the members of the Rent Guidelines Board have expired terms. Mayor Adams might be able to get them to order them to step down and replace them with new members. And then Zohran Mamdani is going to say, can I please have my 0% rent increase? And they're going to say, no. And then he's going to say, well, I'm going to take you to court. And then what are the legal levers that Mamdani has to pull? I don't think they're very good. Because
he also...
There's a question now of who he is. We've never seen him actually succeed as a policy person. He is a very effective communicator. I don't even know that he wants to be a policy. Like maybe he doesn't really, maybe he's not in it to actually change the city. He's in it because he's a theater kid and he wants the attention. But we're going to see, and we'll figure out pretty fast.
Sorry, it was just called.
Oh yeah, New York One also just called it. Sorry, we're watching New York One in the background.
Literally, I just got a text that says Jesus Christ. So I'm not lying.
No,
I won't say who it's from.
We're gonna see the camera moving a little bit on our end. Sorry,
Yeah,
it's because we're
playing
making
the
sure
phone
the phone doesn't die.
No, it's all good. My phone is down.
There's another question, and Mike, I know you had a question that you wanted to ask us, but before we get to that, there is another question from the chat that I just wanted to put to the group. And really, I think this one's for you, Mike, which is, why isn't San Francisco seeing a Zohran-like candidate succeed right now the way that we are seeing?
And before Mike answers that, I want to note that there are other races that we should be watching. We're seeing still stuff. Minneapolis, Seattle, right? Seeing DSA challengers. I don't know what the results are. I haven't looked, but so it's a national phenomenon. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Well, so I think that the radicals, those sort of like hard left, had a lot more control in the city like 2020. And so it was hard for them to claim this sort of outsider, we're going to change the city thing. It was very apparent that most of our problems were because of them and their ideas. And so we could run against them rather than them sort of like coming up against this sclerotic, decaying, moderate machine. However, there are some radicals in the wings, especially for Congress. It seems like probably that's going to go. Scott Wiener sucks, so I think it's going to go to the radical guy. And I don't know. Like it's kind of, you see this anywhere you see young people who are left wing, they're not Democrats. This is like the high level thing in the country for the Democratic Party is that party is a radical party. That is the future of the Democratic Party. It can only be radical. That's where all of the energy is. And little by little, it's going to be like that probably everywhere. But in San Francisco, people have been just very effective at the centrist mobilization thing. And again, we were running against them. So we have this sort of outsider status.
And I should say, Mike had this great piece in the Atlantic a month ago about the abundance faction, which said everything that I have been thinking about that tendency.
It's just a complete joke. The fact that if you read Abundance, the opening of the book is like, this is specifically not for Republicans. We're only talking to the left. And I thought, well, if you're only talking to the left and not even the center right, like not even the center, just the left, then you're fucked. Like you're never going to win because the left if you're only speaking to the left, you have to contend with Luigi Mangione Democrats, people who want to literally kill healthcare executives and celebrate that. And they're not into abundance. In fact, they want to kill you too. They want to kill the Ezra Kleins of the world as well. Like nobody is safe if in the eyes of a communist.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one way to read San Francisco at sort of the macro political level. I'm sorry, the camera's moving around because trying to deal with that. One way to read San Francisco at the macro level is that like there will be voter discipline if things really suck, and in some ways the same thing happened with Eric Adams' election back in 2021, or like. And I can't tell you her name, the now outgoing, probably district attorney or equivalent in Seattle, who's a Republican, who the city's attorney in Seattle, but who won election in 2021, something like that, because things just got so bad. We ran this great piece about from Christian Brown making the same point about like when do Republicans win in the city of New York, and the answer is like things are really bad, right? Like when was Giuliani able to happen? What was the
2,000 murders.
Yeah.
The Crown Heights riot, I think, is really what did it for Giuliani, because we had 2,000 murders a year in 1989 when he first ran and lost to Mayor Dinkins. Crime was much higher in the late 80s. It was actually starting to go down by 1993 when Mayor Giuliani won. But I think, the Crown Heights riot just killed any, potential sense of confidence in Mayor Dinkins. I think racial tensions has gotten to a point where people just didn't care anymore. And I also think that like the exhaustion of crime, even though it was getting better, people, you're talking about a decade of like, well over 1,000 murders. And for a good part of that decade, 2,000 murders a year, people were just sick of it. And I think also like there was something to the fact that there were parts of the city that the elite and well-to-do wanted to access, but they couldn't. You couldn't go jogging in Central Park without running the risk of getting, robbed or raped or worse. Like you couldn't go down to the theater without having to walk through or at least around Times Square, which is basically just an open air prostitution and drug market.
Yeah, the hookers, the famous Times Square hookers.
Right. Like Union Square, was again just like an open air drug market. Bryant Park was an open air drug market. I mean, so it was like all of these places in prime Manhattan where the movers and shakers, like if you lived on the Upper East Side in a beautiful apartment, on overlooking Central Park, you wanted to be able to, and you worked on Wall Street, you wanted to be able to take the 6th Street, but you couldn't without taking your life in your hands. And so it was just like people eventually got sick of it. And I think, that's ultimately what has to happen for New York. We don't learn our lessons the easy way.
I think the other point, and this is something Mikey said, but I think is generally true, is just like part of what happens is just that people notice that things are nuts, right? Like you can boil the frog for a long time, but the frog does eventually notice that it's getting boiled. There can be 1,900 murders a year or 1,800 murders a year, but like when you hit 2,000, you're like, wait a second, I don't actually have to live like this. I could vote for somebody who's not going to do that. But I think, that is made easier by raising the saliency of absurd things happening. The challenge that will exist, I'm thinking about this very actively in our coverage at City Journal. You guys are thinking about this. Ralph has been, and he's going to keep beating the drum about the gang database, which is like the NYPD keeps a database of who's in a gang in the city of New York, which is like good because gang members murder each other a lot and they murder other people a lot, and that's bad. And Mamdani very clearly would like to abolish the gang database. Like he's been quite open about this, and it's deranged, and we don't talk about it
It's deranged on its own, but it's scarier because Mamdani is going to take office along with a city council whose composition
Oh yeah.
a likely occurrence. Like there are legit police and prison abolitionists in large numbers on the city council who will pass a bill to abolish the gang database. It will get to Mamdani's desk and he will sign.
If the city council speaker that gets elected is also on the far left, then you really have an unprecedented situation of like, where are we going? It's totally uncharted waters at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the mayor has traditionally been, at least in recent history, a check on the radicals in the city council. That's not the case with Mamdani and Gracie Mansion. So, the gang database, abolishing that is one thing that I think Mamdani will actually deliver on that will be terrible. But it's not the only thing. I think he is going to move forward on this proposal to give final authority over police discipline to the Civilian Complaint Review Board, which is basically just a group of cop-hating civilians who want nothing more than to charge NYPD members with crimes and get them fired. And that is going to cause a significant slowdown. It is going to cause a lot of reticence on the part of police officers, and it's going to be a disaster.
Well, and just to pile on there very briefly, the NYPD is currently losing 300 officers a month, right? The NYPD is 3,000 officers below where it was. That's like the full size of many cities' sworn forces. It's 3,000 hours below where it was in 2019. Yeah, right. Well, yeah. Our producers talking about sending in the National Guard, which may become necessary. Right? That's where the standoff is. And Mamdani has promised he's not going to do anything like this. He's not going to hire additional costs. Cops. He's not going to try to elevate the number of officers. New York City's safety, because this point of quality blood, New York City's safety is built on the backbone of there is a literal army of police officers in this city, right? That's why New York City is safe. And if you just go, you don't really need it, it will not go well for you.
Yeah. I'll give you another example. So New York City's public schools budget is $41 billion a year. We spend about $40,000 per pupil in the city's public education system.
Nuts, by the way.
He is promising to get rid of mayoral control. Now, that's
right.
Mayor Bloomberg's signature education achievement, where there used to be dozens of small districts that were basically corrupt fiefdoms by locally elected politicos. And Mayor Bloomberg centralized it as one of his first major accomplishments into a Department of Education with a schools chancellor is appointed by the mayor, and the buck stops with the schools chancellor and ultimately the mayor. Mamdani is saying, I don't want mayoral control anymore, but he hasn't said what's going to replace it. So you've got this $41 billion behemoth of a system. It's bigger than states' entire budgets. And he
would not have
I'm not worried. Whatever. It's just going to be something, but I won't tell you.
Zero accountability. People make there's a misunderstanding here. People think, well, democracy, right? We should vote for these things. That's more accountability. In fact, what happens is nobody pays attention to those races, and then there's no accountability. No one ever knows who's in charge of anything. And the mayor, if you even elect them in, can't do anything, even if they make a promise to do something. So it's a huge problem. I think you mentioned Trump a second ago. I think that he will actually be a huge part of Mamdani's, and Mamdani will become now a huge part of Trump's presidency. I think the two of them are super attracted to each other. They both are showmen, and I think they're the perfect foil for each other. I think Trump has more power. He's going to withhold probably money in a bunch of ways. I'm sure courts will get involved. But it does seem I don't know, I've never seen has there been a president who ever cared this much about who the mayor of New York City was? Trump's going to care a lot. And I think that there's probably
briefly. Yeah.
The what?
Gerald, the famous New York fiscal crisis in the mid-'70s, and they went to the feds for a bailout, and Gerald Ford said no, and there's a famous New York Daily News headline, Ford the City dropped dead. It's Ford the City?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ford.
He did come through with some loans.
He did eventually give them money, but it's sort of a classic summary of how bad New York was in the 1970s. Yeah. I think that's right. The other actor who's really interesting here for me is there's going to be a gubernatorial election in the state of New York next year.
You think Ocasio's going to run?
About polling that shows the likely Republican nominee, Representative Elise Stefanik, head of Governor Kathy Hochul by a point. It's early days. We don't know. But if I am Elise Stefanik, I'm I want to run against Zohran Mamdani.
Kathy Hochul has endorsed Zohran Mamdani.
Is on stage holding hands. I could see the photos.
Right, especially a year from now.
Rich.
Yes.
Like she looked like she was held captive by the
TSA.
No, it was like, it was like,
Yeah.
Now,
she made that choice. She did not have to.
And Chuck Schumer did not endorse him. Chuck Schumer did not come out and endorse Mamdani.
but today he was asked who he
Yes.
voted for,
And he declined.
and he declined to say. He just said, "I voted, and I, whatever. Like I hope New York City will be okay."
Mamdani didn't endorse Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
So she could have just said, look, I'm going to be the adult in the room. I'm going to make sure that the city is in capable, responsible hands. I won't endorse Zohran Mamdani, but, I wish him well as a Democratic nominee. She didn't do that. So she's got to own it. I mean,
It's bad when Bill de Blasio endorses him.
Well, that's Mamdani's role model now.
Yeah,
It's going to be, well, that's the thing. So, Mike, you made an important point about accountability, right? Well, if you are voting for Zohran Mamdani because you're going to get your $40 a month frozen on your prospective rent increase, well, then you know what? The mayor can do whatever the hell he wants, and you're still going to vote for him to save your $40 a month.
Right.
That's the danger. It's like bread and circuses was dangerous in the Roman Empire, not because it gave freebies to the poor, but because it allowed the emperor to do whatever he wanted. And that's basically the dynamic that we are seeing. Like Mamdani might just hire a bunch of bureaucrats and we have a $116 billion budget. Like, that is just a bonanza for the nonprofit industrial complex, cities, for the teachers unions, for all sorts of government workers unions, employment. Bill de Blasio increased government employment in New York City by 35,000 jobs. Could anyone have really said that their lives were materially better by the end of de Blasio's administration?
That's crazy. That is really crazy. This is my biggest problem with government and the bloat of government is that my life has never gotten better. Like there's not been a single thing the government has improved in my entire life, and I don't think anyone else can answer that it has either. So there's this perennial question of where did the money go? What did you spend it on?
There's this other thing that's happening right now, which is a federal government shutdown that no one seems to be feeling or noticing, which ought to tell you exactly how much the government is working, because the federal budget is way bigger than the budget here in New York. And I don't know.
All the money that's relevant continues to flow. And this is the challenge of Trump cutting off federal funds. It is the case that New York City is strongly dependent on federal revenue, right? It's stuff like highway funds, right? What is the Department of Transportation going to do under Mamdani? Are they going to go back and pick up
You're going to fix the BQE?
Well, there's that. Yeah, we build a second Avenue subway. No, are they going to go back and pick the fight about I can't generate the term for it. Charging people extra money for driving. Congestion pricing. Thank you. I don't know if I can get that. Are they going to go back to picking that fight? I don't know. They're in a legal fight about that. Are they going to send troops to New York City? I think that New York is in a much more precarious, to your point, Mike, but I think we were saying this earlier, New York is in a much more precarious position than it realizes, and that the bread and circuses model only works if you have somebody to make the bread and somebody to produce the circuses. And currently, New York City is running out of bread makers and circus producers, or more precisely, funders underwriting.
Well, there are plenty of circus performers in New York. I would say they've got those in spades, including the mayor.
Yeah.
And they're going to see in City Hall.
Yes. Yeah, they're driving the bus.
There's something else that New York is running out of, and that is time between now and August of 2027, which is a date that I want you all who are watching this to understand is a date of very great importance. Why? August 2027 is when we will have our Gotham moment. That is when the jails on Rikers Island must, by legislative mandate, be closed and emptied of all prisoners. Where are they going to go? In theory, they're supposed to go to one of 4 borough-based jails, which, by the way, will only be able to house about 3,900 of the 7,000 that we currently have incarcerated on Rikers.
But they won't be built. They won't be.
None of them will be ready come August 2027. So here is Zohran Mamdani's first challenge. What is your plan? What are we going to do come August 2027 when not one of those jails is built yet? Are we going to have a forced experiment in complete decarceration in a jail-free New York? If that's the case, then absolutely bring the troops.
Close the tunnels, raise the bridges. It's a great movie.
The population of Rikers Island is the worst of the worst
Yes,
right now,
right.
because of bail reform.
So-
in part,
Let me just contextualize this.
Do this, and then we should do closing thoughts. We have 7 minutes left.
There was a period of time in which violence, really kind of post 2016 on Rikers Island just went through the roof. What happened in 2016? Well, they got rid of solitary confinement, and so they couldn't control any of the inmates anymore. This was a big fight that I was having with the Democrats in New York City. And the de Blasio administration's basic answer was that, well, hey, we've done these bail reforms. We have, really decarcerated. And so the reason we have so much violence has nothing to do with solitary confinement. It's just that we have a higher concentration of really dangerous criminals. Well, guess what? Those are exactly the kinds of people that you don't want on the street. And that's exactly where they're going to go come August 2027.
Yep.
So,
All right. We got 5 minutes left. We want to close out. We're going to offer closing thoughts. Vaughn might die in the middle of that, so we'll try to be very succinct. John, I'll give it to you first. What are your takeaways?
we're going to learn a lot about the shape of this administration based on the staffing of it. Mamdani hire experienced people who have, former Bloomberg members, for example, former Adams members, or is he going to bring the DSA in to govern? That's going to say a lot, and we will learn in the coming days and weeks.
Mamdani's on DSA.
Yeah.
I mean, the first deputy mayor, in large part, runs the nuts and bolts of the city. Who Mamdani picks for first deputy mayor will be an important bellwether. The other thing is New York City has a balanced budget requirement. It is the most stringent budget requirements of any major city in the U.S. Governing moderates people in normal circumstances because, you have to make the numbers balance out somehow. If we have a recession, if we have a federal funding crunch, or any number of other contingencies, well, Mamdani is going to be starting from behind. How he manages those challenges concretely, given that he really has not answered for these contingencies in the campaign trail, that will be very important. But we will be here for all of it and chronicling it, because we're not going anywhere.
That's right. You got anything you want to add?
I mean, look, I think it's a sad day for New York, to be honest. I mean, I'm generally a relatively happy-go-lucky guy. Those of you who love to insult me on Twitter know that. I usually just respond with a funny GIF. But this hurts. I mean, I do love this city, and I do think it's going to be worse off. I feel lucky that I was able to be in a position to leave the city when we decided that was the best thing to do for our family. I suspect a lot of other people will make that same choice. But the one thing that guides my work here is that there are a lot of people who can't, and they deserve better than Zohran Mamdani.
Mike, do you have any words of wisdom?
I don't know about wisdom, but it's a prediction. I think that Trump is going to make this his new cathedral. I think he's going to be extremely attracted to New York City. I think it's going to become the canvas for his art. And I think that it's going to be really difficult to discern what's real. Like what is Zohran doing versus what is the noise and the pageantry. They're going to be performing a lot. It'll be crazy. I think it's going to be crazy. I think we're all going to have a lot to write about.
Yeah.
We'll get the ball.
I think that's right. I'm going to add to that. We are always cautious of electoral politics. Now,
The ballot proposals.
oh, I don't know what's
Okay,
going to
I think
happen.
Well, I think we
yes.
probably have
Okay.
a minute
Okay.
left.
Yeah, sorry. Well, yeah. Let me leave closing thoughts. Now we're in the realm of actual positive decision making. Now a 34-year-old whose first real job was being state assemblyman, and before that he was a rapper, is actually the mayor
Not
of the
a good one.
Not a good one.
Okay.
Is actually mayor of the largest and most important city, the largest in the United States, arguably the most important city in the entire planet. Is my response, because we're gonna be paying attention, and we'll have lots of opinions on what's happening. Listeners, thanks so much for joining us. cityjournal.substack.com, Mike, piratewires.com. Go subscribe to the Great Morning email. We also send out stuff sometimes. I feel like we can call it there. No, we're good. Okay, thank you all so much. Thank you, Mike. You're the best.
Thanks for having me.
Mike.
Bye, guys.